after the age of 52 will absolutely stop you from ever getting Alzheimer's disease. There is not one known incident of anyone who smoked marijuana for a protracted period of time who's ever gotten Alzheimer's. Well, while we're on the subject too, I'll get who prides himself on being very attentive, who's going to remember most things I say? Would that be you? I did. Because every now and then I will go off on a tangent and I'll need someone to reel me back into where I left off, because I've got a million different stories about marijuana to talk about. And I know a lot of them, so I will segue all over the place to tell you about it. So let me just say that marijuana is the greatest plant ever put on this planet. And all scientific evidence, all empirical evidence, all historical evidence validates that. There's absolutely no other plant on the planet that people wore the clothing of for thousands of years. And cotton, by the way, is a relatively modern invention. Cotton was only mass-picked, starting in the 1700s with the invention of the cotton gin. So the kind of clothes we wear today, we've only been wearing for about 220 years. Before that, in the medieval period and in the biblical period, in the ancient period, clothing was made largely of marijuana hemp, cannabis sativa, sisal, and jute, and flax. All the kind of things that would grow in the Middle East that people could harvest and cultivate and use primitive bloom to make into clothing. And the clothing was expensive and difficult to make in the ancient period. People didn't own a lot of clothing. So it had to last, and hemp lasted a long, long time in that ancient period. Now there's a plant we're already talking about. None of us are probably wearing too much hemp clothing here, but cannabis was useful for over 5,000 years. From the first clothing was made, estimated around 4,000 BC, to the present time. So cannabis clothing has been around 6,000 years. The earliest known historical reference of people eating cannabis seeds is 5,500 years before Christ. So 7,000 years ago, people have been eating cannabis for its nutrient value. The earliest known episode of smoking marijuana, and it wasn't done with a joint or a pipe in the ancient period. It was done by building a big tent, and at the harvest festival, after they shook out all the seeds of the cannabis, because you need those to crush them for oil and to eat, to make gruel and cereals, because they're very portable, and hemp seeds last a long time. You can carry them with you, they're super handy. They were traded as a commodity. Lots of things, oils were made out of them, cakes were made out of them. And when they shook out all the seeds, and when they kept all the stems, the long bast fibers for clothing, they took the flowering tops with the seeds out, and they would go into a teepee, and unfortunately it was only the men that were allowed to do this, and they would stand about, jump up, and then throw huge armfuls of weed, marijuana, right on the fire in the middle of this teepee, and it would just go, it would be so hot it would turn into a vast vaporizing steamer, and it was so overwhelmingly powerful that the men would stand around breathing it in heavily, would see visions of God. And this is how they connected with God in the ancient period, is by throwing big heaps of cannabis on a fire in a teepee, and the smoke and steam swirling around it and overwhelming them until they fell to the ground and saw incredible visions. So cannabis has been around for not only centuries, but millennia. And it's been a very useful one. When you look up the historical records, you don't see anybody going, oh my God, I'm worried about the 16-year-olds on the block smoking marijuana. You never see that. That's a strictly modern phenomenon of the last 60 years. Marijuana has been around 15,000 years, and never were our elders in any past society, in any past period of time, ever worried about young people getting a hold of this plant. And